Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas, back with another player reviews. At the end of this season, it was a long old season in the end, massively disappointing end, finishing in 10th. But just as we did last summer, we're going to be bringing you these 5-10 minute reviews about our opinions on how each of the players did, where we thought they could improve. And obviously when we're talking about the new signings, we'll talk about, how well they have made an impact. Joined today by Connor Williams, making his debut on the channel. So Connor, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm good, mate. Excited to get going.
Yeah, brilliant. So we shall start off with a man that joined in the summer. He'd been rumoured to be joined for quite a while as well, on and off, especially with Marco Silva. The man is, of course, Abdoulaye Doucoure, joined in that kind of flurry of transfer activity alongside James Rodriguez and Alan, and just kind of that crazy move, that crazy week where, Marcel Brands was seen in hotels with them. It was absolutely ridiculous. So we'll just rattle off a few of the stats straight away. Made 34 appearances, of course, got that kind of few-week injury at the end of the season, which did kind of halt him a bit, definitely affected the side, especially considering the impact he had. 2 goals, 3 assists, 6 yellow cards. And yeah, so Connor, just to start off, what were your initial reactions to the move when it first came about? It was definitely an area we needed to improve.
I thought when it first came about, it was more of like you said, it was more of an about time, because like you said, he was close with Marco Silva at Watford. When Silva came, there was rumoured that he was a player that Silva wanted and couldn't quite grab from Watford. So when we signed him, I was quite excited to have him. He was good at Watford. He was great before they went down. And he just seemed energetic, which is what I thought our midfield needed, somebody to do the legwork.
Yeah, absolutely. It seemed like it was a move that was, in the motion for quite a while. Maybe not a Carlo Ancelotti signing. It's quite clear that the club themselves were interested for a while, and Marcel Brands, of course, being the director of football, they were clearly interested for quite a while. So I was delighted when he first came in. I thought it provided proved great value for money as well. It wasn't too expensive in the end. And with Watford finally getting relegated, it did seem like it was only a matter of time. And as you mentioned, it massively added to that kind of lack of energy, lack of mobility that we had in the midfield. So moving on from our initial reactions to the signing, then just in general, what did you make of his season? That we know kind of what he was going to bring, but what did you make of him inside?
I think he's had a really good starting season. Obviously, I think he brought what we expected him to bring. He brought mobility, he brought energy. He's very much the box-to-box and works well in that role. I've seen him a couple of times, on the edge of corners, running in, heading the ball back into the box to keep the pressure on from corners, which we've been really successful from this season. So I think he brings an aerial presence in the midfield as well, especially when you combine him with the likes of Alan and Tom Davis. When we combine the 3 of them, he's slightly taller than those 2, so he's going to have more of an aerial presence in our midfield. But I was just impressed with how much he moves and how much he keeps running. He seems to have a lot of fitness, a lot of stamina in the tank. And overall, I think he's had a really good starting season. It's a really strong base to move on from for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I was being very impressed with him as well. I agree with everything you said there. The natural fitness is something we definitely maybe haven't seen for quite a while at the club. That midfielder who never seems to stop running, right until the 90th minute. And I think he was probably, I don't know if you agree with this, I think he was probably our best and probably most important midfielder this season. I think just in general, what he added to the squad, that we didn't already have, that pace, that energy, that stamina in midfield. And his work rate is absolutely brilliant. We knew he was going to bring that already, but I've still been very impressed. And in terms of his debut season as well, I completely agree. I think he was very impressive, and it'll be interesting to see if we do recruit any more in the centre midfield, because obviously if we do lose Advoulaye Doucoure, as we did towards the end of the season, we lose that energy almost instantly. We know Alan likes to run around a lot. Tom Davis likes that, but it's not quite the same. It's not quite the stamina kind of box-to-box that Doucoure definitely brings. So as I mentioned there, I think he's been our most important midfielder this season. Do you agree with that? Do you think he's definitely had the most impact? Or
yeah, I think I agree. I think it was always going to be between him and Alan when we bought them both, to see which one would be the more important to lose. And I think once we lost Doucoure, we realised just how important he was. Because like you said, Tom Davis and Alan like to go forward as much as they go back. But they don't have, I don't know if it's a speed or they just don't have that stamina to get back as quickly as Doucoure does. So you sort of like, like he almost stays, he knows when to stay as well while the other two bomb forward. And then with Adam, we saw Sigurdsson and Andre Gomez trying to fill that role. And we had bits where like all three would go forward, or the one that was left behind didn't have quite the stamina and quickness to backtrack when we were defending. So I think it was only once he was missing that I really that fully understood how important he was to that midfield of ours.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he definitely has the most impact in terms of what he brings, because we saw when Alan was getting injured that Tom Davies could kind of fill in that role, in that kind of sitting in front of the defence and shield, and then Davies came in and did that quite well. But what Doucoure brings, I think, is basically, unparalleled in terms of that work rate and stamina. And he was a player I wanted to see at the club for quite a while. We knew his natural ability, his natural stamina, that was something we needed. And I was disappointed for kind of a couple of years where we didn't seem to bring him in when it just seemed like the really obvious move. But as I mentioned, obviously, when Watford did end up getting relegated, it was always on the cards. And I was happy to see him come in. And yeah, I agree with everything he said. I think he's had a very impressive debut season. But I mean, we spoke very positively about him so far, and I think that's fair enough. I think he's had the biggest impact in our midfield, one of our most important signings in the summer. I think he'd probably just come after Ben Godfrey for me in terms of how impressive they were. But is there anything that you think he's maybe lacking, that you could see he's got any room for improvement, that maybe he could add something to his game that would help us out more?
I'd like to see him go a little bit more further forward. We've said he's box to box, but I think the problem with our midfield is we have creative players, like Gylfi Sigurdsson, Andre Gomez to an extent. But I'd like to see him just, pushing a little bit more with the goals. I think he's only got 2 goals in the Premier League this season, 3 assists. I'd just like him to fill a little bit more of them in. But that's just nitpicking, really, because he's been fantastic this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of his, we know he likes to get box to box, as you mentioned, but in terms of his actual attacking contribution, I might want to see him come in there, because we know about his aerial presence as well. I remember it was really early season. He got that goal against Brighton, or Fulham, I can't quite remember, which was a header. And, we saw his aerial presence then, and maybe we haven't seen that elsewhere that maybe we could have. But in terms of passing range, maybe I think he can improve there. We know by the time he gets up the pitch, I don't think he's the absolute complete product in terms of his ability to find a pass. And we know that that's naturally going to be left to Sigurdsson and Gomez to generally play those final ball passes. But if they're not in the team, or, generally in terms of Gomez, if he's not off the pitch at that point, I think Doucoure maybe needs to slightly improve his passing range, so then we can complete that move going forwards. But other than that, I think I've been, as I mentioned, quite impressed. So, well, I don't know what you really make of his passing range then, because obviously he's not that player who we think is going to play that killer final ball. It's meant to be Gomez. Obviously, we know that it rarely ever is. It's meant to be Sigurdsson. I think he's done better at that this season than he has in the previous few. But what would you say about his passing range then? Do you think he maybe needs to become a bit more clinical in the final third, or do you think he's maybe kind of just doing his job well, which is that shuttling the box forwards, laying off the pass to someone with maybe slightly more technical ability, and then repeating effectively?
That's what I thought at first. I was like, is it more not that he doesn't have the ability in the final third to pick out a pass, or hit a long cross the pitch pass, or is it just that he's doing the job asked? When doing what he's known for winning the ball, carrying it forward, laying it off to somebody else who then delivers the final ball. So I'm not too sure if it's more he's filling the role that he's been asked to fill, or it's an ability thing. He knows his strengths and weaknesses well, so he's trying to hide so much his weaknesses and keep to the strengths of his game. I'm not too sure. It's a bit tough because with our midfield, obviously, as much as him going forward, I'd much prefer him out of the three to stay a little bit further, to run back. Because like we mentioned, when he was missing, a couple of our other midfielders sort of lacked getting back. So I'd hope to think it's more the role he's been asked to play, more than his actual ability in the final third. But like you said, we've got other players that, we expect to be in the final third and playing those balls across the field.
Yeah, hopefully in the summer that kind of is addressed, because I think his passing's pretty decent. But if he is that player that has to play that ball and he's not always going to find it, maybe that is where we need to recruit. But kind of just my final question for this review, because there are players that we're going to have to go into a lot more detail about, maybe criticising them, praising them in other ways. But Doucoure, he's had a good season, if not, maybe just insignificant, kind of goes under the radar, and that's the kind of natural role that he plays. But he is now 28, of course, will turn 29 next season. what are you really expecting him now from his development? We know he's had a good debut season, but he was kind of signed to have that instant impact. He's not one of the youthful signings like Ben Godfrey was. So how do you envisage his development now going for, well, next season and maybe the next couple of years as well?
I think as he stays in the team and as he gels with his midfield, partners, I think he will get better. I don't think he'll, like you said, he's towards the later end of his career, so I don't think we'll see an amazing amount of growth compared to a younger player to the prime years. I think it matters a lot on who we buy and who we decide, as if Carlo decides to play the free, who he decides to partner with Doucoure, whether it be Allen, Tom Davis, or Allen and Sigurdsson or Gomez. I think it's that third spot that's really up for grabs. I think it's Allen, Doucoure, and then whoever he fits in. I think if you build the midfield around him and get a third person who suits him, he'll come on leaps and bounds. But like you said, he's one of those players who does sort of the dog's bodies work, runs legless and doesn't quite get the praise he probably should do for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree in that. We can't really go into too much detail about that. A player that he's very important, don't get me wrong. He obviously offers what a lot of the midfielders don't, but he does kind of play that thankless role in the midfield that maybe, when we look at midfielders like James Rodriguez, even Gylfi Sigurdsson, the ones that get the goals and the assists, there is a lot more to talk about. But just in my kind of summarising thoughts, very impressed with him debut season. I was delighted when he came in, and he's done exactly what I expected of him, to be honest. He hasn't been a disappointment. He hasn't set the world alight in terms of his final third contributions, which maybe, as I mentioned, I'd maybe want to see him improve on next season. But have you got anything you want to add, basically, just before we round this video up?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. He's had a very good season, and I'm excited to see what he does next season.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to let us know your thoughts on Doucoure's debut season down in the comments below. Do you think he has to improve in any way, or have you just been very happy with what he's done so far? And obviously, Connor, it is your debut on the channel, so if you want to tell anyone, where can they find you? Obviously, your social media will be down below, but tell us a bit about yourself, where the viewers can find you.
You can find me mainly on Twitter. That's the social media handle I use the most. To find me on Twitter, it'll be down below. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to check out the rest of the player reviews we are going to be doing. Check out Connor's social media. And plenty of player reviews to go. We will be doing one on every player that played this season. So thank you all very much for watching, and join us next time on the Toffee Blues.